The Space Detective, investigating murder in the final frontier. The vastness of space had always been a silent witness to human ambition, its infinite stretches far beyond the grasp of understanding. But for Detective Elias Ward, space had become a prison, a deep, starless chasm into which his fate had been cast. He stared out the window of the starship Elysium, its polished surface reflecting the cold void of space. The only light came from distant stars that seemed almost indifferent to the drama unfolding within the vessel's hull. Ward had always thought of himself as a man of reason, a mind trained to unearth truth from the shadows of deception. But this murder, was unlike any he'd ever encountered. There was a whisper of something beyond the rational, something that tugged at his very soul. He had heard stories of how space could make men mad, how it stripped away the illusions of reality and left behind something raw and terrifying. But he had never believed them. Until now. Detective Ward, a voice interrupted his thoughts. It was Commander Lucinda Carver, her tone laced with both authority and anxiety. "We need you in the observation room. It's worse than we thought." Ward followed her through the sterile corridors of the Elysium, a ship built for research and exploration, now stained by death. The body of Dr. Gareth Voss, the brilliant xenobiologist, had been discovered just hours ago. His death was no accident. The autopsy confirmed that Voss had been poisoned deliberately, methodically. But the killer was still among them, hidden somewhere within the tight quarters of the ship. The observation room was small, its walls lined with screens displaying various images of the ship's interior and external systems. In the center stood the body of Voss, his lifeless form frozen in a state of eerie calm. His face had been drained of color, but his eyes were wide open, locked in an expression of terror. As Ward approached, he felt a chill that had nothing to do with the coldness of space. There was something unnatural about this death. "How did this happen?" Ward asked, his voice steady though his mind was racing. Carver's expression was grim. "We don't know. The crew was on a routine mission to study the effects of prolonged space travel on the human body. Voss was a respected scientist. There was no reason for anyone to harm him, at least none that we can see." Ward knelt beside the body, his eyes scanning for any sign that might indicate the nature of the crime. He noted the faint traces of a rare poison found in the tissues, a compound only known to be used by the most clandestine of organizations. This was no ordinary murder. This was a message. Could it have been an accident? Carver asked, her voice tinged with desperation. A mishap with one of the experiments? Ward shook his head. This was deliberate. Whoever did this knew exactly what they were doing. And they knew how to cover their tracks. He stood up, taking a deep breath. The question is, why? Why Voss? What did he know that made him a target? Carver's eyes flickered with unease. We've been going through his research logs, but there's nothing that stands out. His last entry was about a project he was working on with Dr. Avery Monroe, the ship's chief engineer. It had something to do with an energy source, some new discovery he made on a distant planet. But there's no record of what it was. It was encrypted. Ward turned towards her, his eyes narrowing. Encrypted? And the rest of the crew? What do they know? We've been asking them, but everyone seems nervous, Carver replied, glancing at the crew members who lingered nearby, their faces a mix of fear and suspicion. It's like they're hiding something. Ward's instincts flared. He had dealt with enough conspiracies in his career to know when something wasn't right. This wasn't just a simple murder, it was the beginning of something far more insidious. Someone on this ship was playing a dangerous game, and Ward was determined to uncover the truth. I'll need access to all of Voss's personal files, including any communications with Dr. Monroe, Ward said. And I want to speak with the entire crew. We'll start with the ones who had the most to gain from Voss's death. Carver nodded. I'll get the data for you. But be careful, Ward. There's more going on here than just a murder. I can feel it. Ward turned to face her, his voice resolute. Then we'll find out what it is. As he left the observation room, he couldn't shake the feeling that something far greater than a simple murder was at play. The deeper he delved into the investigation, the more the shadows seemed to move around him, twisting and turning in ways he couldn't understand. He knew that time was running out. If he didn't uncover the truth soon, the entire mission might be compromised, and everyone aboard the Elysium would be at risk. The days aboard the Elysium stretched into a blur. Ward spoke with each member of the crew, trying to piece together the puzzle that was Dr. Voss's murder. Most of the crew members seemed to be hiding something, their answers evasive, their eyes filled with fear. But one name kept coming up, Dr. Avery Monroe, the chief engineer. Monroe was a quiet, brooding figure, a man whose demeanor seemed to shift like the ever-changing patterns of the stars. He had a reputation for brilliance but also for secrecy. He had worked closely with Voss on the encrypted project, but his records were just as sealed as Voss's. Monroe had an air of detachment, as though he wasn't fully present. His mind, perhaps, was already on something far beyond the confines of the Elysium. Ward found him in the ship's engine room, the hum of the massive reactors filling the space. The room was dimly lit, shadows clinging to the walls like silent ghosts. Monroe stood at one of the consoles, his eyes fixed on the flickering screens before him. "Dr. Monroe," Ward said, his voice cutting through the silence. "I need to ask you about your work with Dr. Voss. And I need answers." Monroe didn't immediately turn around. Instead, he continued to stare at the screens, his fingers moving in an almost ritualistic pattern. Ward could feel the tension building, the quiet pressure that hung in the air. "I didn't kill him," Monroe said finally, his voice low, almost a whisper. Ward stepped closer. "Then why are you hiding the project? Why was it encrypted? What did Voss discover?" Monroe turned slowly, his eyes meeting Ward's with an intensity that made the detective pause. "What Voss found, it's not just science. It's something else. It's dangerous." Ward frowned, sensing that Monroe was teetering on the edge of revealing something monumental. "What do you mean?" Monroe's gaze softened, as if torn between loyalty and fear. The project, it wasn't just about energy. It was about something ancient, something from the stars themselves. And Voss was starting to understand it. He was getting too close. Ward's pulse quickened. Too close to what? Monroe's voice dropped to a whisper, and he stepped closer to Ward, his eyes scanning the room nervously. Too close to the truth. The truth about the origins of this ship. The truth about who we are really serving out here. A chill ran down Ward's spine as the word sank in. The case was no longer just about murder, it was about something far greater, something that had been hidden in the depths of space for centuries. The final frontier had never been so dangerous. The space detective, investigating murder in the final frontier. Elias Ward felt the weight of Monroe's words settle into his chest like a stone. The truth about the origins of this ship, Monroe had whispered, his voice so low it almost seemed to hum with the same eerie frequency of the stars themselves. Ward had been trained to follow logic, to peel away the layers of deception until nothing remained but the cold, unvarnished facts. But this was something else. Something intangible. Something beyond his understanding. He left Monroe in the engine room, his mind reeling from the implications. The ship, Elysium, was more than just a vessel. The deeper Ward probed, the more he realized that the very foundation of their mission was a lie. Everything had been meticulously crafted, from the crew's carefully selected backgrounds to the seemingly innocuous scientific experiments. And now this murder, this calculated, deliberate act of poison. What had Dr. Voss uncovered that had threatened so many lives? As Ward walked down the sterile corridors of the ship, he passed by the observation windows, watching the stars streak by in long, silvery lines. The infinite void beyond the ship's hull felt colder now, as though it was aware of his thoughts, pressing in on him with its ancient, unyielding silence. Ward's gaze hardened. Whoever had killed Voss had known something dangerous, something so valuable that it could not be allowed to escape. The investigation had taken him into the hearts of the ship's crew, forcing him to confront the tensions between them. But none of them were willing to break. It was as if they were all bound by an unseen force, one that pulled them together even as it pulled them apart. Ward's next move led him to the ship's medical bay. It was here that Dr. Eliza Moore, the ship's physician, spent much of her time. Ward had met her only briefly, but there was something about her that struck him. Perhaps it was the way she seemed to observe everything, as though she were more than just a passive observer of human nature. Perhaps it was the way her eyes lingered just a second too long on certain details, as though she were seeing things others couldn't. The medical bay was bathed in soft, white light. Dr. Moore stood near one of the examination tables, her hands busy with the clipboard, her back to the door. When Ward entered, she didn't turn immediately. He waited, sensing that she was aware of his presence long before he had stepped inside. Finally, she spoke. "I know what you're here for, Detective." Ward didn't flinch. He had learned long ago that silence could speak volumes. "You knew Voss. You worked with him on his research. What was he really investigating?" Dr. Moore sighed, her shoulders sagging slightly as though the weight of an old secret was finally starting to push through the cracks. She turned to face him, her expression unreadable. It wasn't just energy, Detective. It was something far more ancient, something beyond the grasp of human understanding. Voss found the key. Ward leaned in, his heart quickening. The key to what? Dr. Moore hesitated. The key to the origin of the universe itself. Ward froze. The air seemed to thicken and the low hum of the ship's engines faded into the background. What do you mean? It's not just science, Detective Moore said quietly. It's more than that. What Voss uncovered, it was tied to a network of ancient civilizations that predate even humanity. They knew something that was hidden from us, buried in the stars. They left behind traces, but Voss was the one who found the first real evidence. Ward's mind raced as he tried to comprehend the magnitude of what she was saying. It wasn't just about murder, it was about an ancient truth that had been locked away for millennia. A truth that, if revealed, could shake the very foundation of reality. Where's this evidence? Ward asked urgently. Where is it now? Dr. Moore's eyes darkened. It's hidden. The encrypted files, Voss's last work, are stored in the ship's core, under layers of security. Only one person knows how to access them. Dr. Avery Monroe. Ward's stomach clenched. Monroe. The very man he had just spoken to. He had already suspected that there was something off about him. Now he knew. Monroe had the final piece of the puzzle. But before he could formulate another question, the intercom system crackled to life. Detective Ward, Carver's voice echoed through the speakers. We need you on the bridge. Now! Ward's heart skipped a beat. The urgency in her voice sent a chill down his spine. He glanced at Dr. Moore, who nodded solemnly. You're too late, she whispered. It's already begun. The bridge of the Elysium was a flurry of activity as Ward entered. Carver stood at the command station, her face pale and tense, her hands gripping the console with white knuckles. The rest of the crew was stationed around the room, eyes wide, as if waiting for something to happen. Something terrible. Carver, Ward said, his voice low. What's going on? It's Monroe, Carver replied, her voice tight with anxiety. He's taken control of the ship. He's locked down all access to the core, and he's activated the ship's distress beacon. Ward's pulse quickened. Distress beacon? Why? Carver swallowed. He's sending out a signal. To them. To whoever it is that's out there. Ward felt his chest tighten. He knew what Monroe was trying to do. He wasn't just hiding the truth, he was trying to ensure that it was found, no matter the cost. And if he succeeded, the consequences would be catastrophic. Get him, Ward ordered, his voice cutting through the panic that was starting to ripple through the crew. Now! We don't have much time. The crew scrambled into action, but Ward was already moving, his mind set on one thing, finding Monroe and stopping whatever he was planning before it was too late. As Ward and the crew reached the ship's core, the atmosphere grew increasingly tense. The walls of the ship seemed to hum with an energy that wasn't there before, something that echoed the ancient power Monroe had tapped into. They reached the security door and Ward's hand hovered over the keypad. He was about to unlock it when the door suddenly slid open on its own. Monroe stood inside, his back to them, staring out into the vast emptiness of space. He didn't turn around as Ward entered. It's too late, Detective, Monroe said softly. They'll be here soon. And when they arrive, you'll understand. Ward stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. This ends now, Monroe. Monroe's shoulders slumped slightly, and he turned to face them, a faint smile on his lips. You don't understand, do you? This isn't just about survival. It's about evolution. We were never meant to be here. But we can change. We can become something more. Ward didn't reply. He only took one step forward. In that moment, everything seemed to slow. The stars outside the ship's windows seemed to stretch, their light bending in ways that defied logic. The ship itself felt like it was alive, like it was waiting, listening for something. And then as the distress beacon blared its final warning, Ward knew. There was no turning back now. As the ship systems began to falter, Elias Ward knew that the Elysium was no longer just a ship, it was a conduit. A bridge between the known universe and the mysteries that lay beyond. Monroe's actions had set in motion a chain of events that would change everything. With one final push, Ward reached out and disabled the core systems. The ship began to stabilize, the ancient forces slowly retreating into the darkness from which they had emerged. But Ward knew deep in his soul that the truth had been set free. And with it, a new chapter in humanity's journey had begun. What do you think will happen next for Detective Ward and the Elysium crew? What secrets will they uncover as they venture further into the unknown? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like and share this story to keep the journey going. The mysteries of the cosmos await.